For many staff, we had to test what were often deep-seated assumptions that they had about students, about learning, about what they were meant to do as teachers. And we had to challenge those assumptions, because unless we actually got to the core of those assumptions that they had, then there was no changing them. I remember one thing we did around homework. I went around, visited all the classrooms, looked at what was being given out for homework, and a lot of it, there wasn't much homework. So I asked the staff why they didn't give homework. Oh, the kids can't do it. They've got no resources in the home. We give them homework, but they never do it. It's too hard to follow it up. You can't give out books because they'll lose them. It was all the students' fault. So I asked the students, well, we do homework when the teacher gives it to us. We do homework when the teacher actually marks it and gives us feedback. I always do homework from Mrs. Jones because she always explains it very carefully, and she's always really interested in how we do it. And I put two sets of perceptions up in front of the staff. And their perceptions of what students thought and could do about homework were completely different to the reality. I found with students in terms of behaviour that staff would blame students for misbehaviour. Yet I couldn't figure out how you could have a perfectly well-controlled, wonderfully motivated class in the next room or in the next period. There was in that school what I call the soft prejudice of low expectation. And the students went down to the level of expectation that people had of them. And so fundamental job with adults is to change their expectations that they have of the students. And we had a simple mantra. If it's not good enough for your child, then it's not good enough for any child. And we would ask teachers all the time to say, is that okay for someone to speak to your child like that? If you were sitting in this classroom, if your child was sitting in this classroom, would it be okay? So we changed the perception, we changed the way that staff viewed the children. And very soon standards and expectations started to rise very dramatically. The second thing we did in terms of the adults in the organisation is that we demanded that they take personal responsibility for everything that happened. In management, people always come up and moan about things. So we developed a mantra. The mantra was, yes, and what have you done about it? Can I support you in doing something about it? So we made the adults in the organisation accept responsibility for the performance of the organisation, not, again, blame the kids. The next thing that we did was we put a high price on professional development of staff. If you take the issue of student behaviour, every teacher would manage a class beautifully if they could. How do I know that? Because behaviour management of young people is inherently selfish. Who would not want a quiet, orderly, engaged class of young people in front of them every day? Who would want a rabbit? So every teacher will manage a class so that they've got a great learning environment if they know how. And many of our teachers just simply didn't know how, and we had to teach them. After we dealt with some of the initial things, we started concentrating on what I call the bigger picture things. And the first thing that we said is, if this school is going to work, then we have to make the main thing the main thing. We have to get rid of all the extraneous things that go on. And we have to concentrate on what our core business is. So let's stop worrying about everything else and let's focus on learning. And again, another mantra. Any suggestion that came up, the question was, how will this improve learning for the students at this school? And if you can't prove that it will, or if you can't make a really good case that this will improve learning, then I'm sorry, we're not interested. We forced everything in the school to go through that justification. Programs, innovations, resourcing, staffing allocations, everything got the same test. We had to get rid of some of the extras. Why there's no community ed at Tamaki College. We had to make the main thing the main thing. We had to concentrate first and foremost on our key responsibilities. Next thing was, if it's the main thing and if it matters, then you have to measure it. Example, attendance. Attendance was lousy. So what do? Every day we measured attendance. Every day, every class's attendance was published in the staff room for the entire staff to see. Every day, staff had conversations with each other about why the attendance in their class was 15% and someone else's was 12%. And at the end of every week, we celebrated the high achievers amongst the staff who had the highest rates of attendance in their class. In terms of the students, it was really quite simple. We had to break from telling the students how awful they were to telling them how good they were. It's a funny thing, isn't it? But positive reinforcement, praise, it's just incredible how it lifts people. And we made a point of stopping all the negativity towards the students and praising them and praising them and praising them. We changed their uniform so that they could wear it with pride. I will never forget the day that we got the new senior uniform. We had all these students lined up. The staff said they would never wear it. The staff said they'd never pay for it. They all had their money in before time. They all got in these uniforms. We bought 40 blazers so that they could all wear blazers, which they couldn't afford. And then we put them in the school minibuses and we took one group down to Glenellis Town Centre, we took one group down to Panmure Town Centre, and we said, just walk up and down the street for half an hour.